Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weiner, joined today by special guest co-host Peter Dewey, and it is Wild Card Week. Typically, that is a statement reserved for the NFL, but now that we've got a Wild Card series before the DSs, baseball gets to share some of that joy, and the playoffs begin tomorrow. They have ranked the games for us. Basically, they're like, do you want to watch the Rangers and Rays? You sure? Well, that game's first. You guys can settle in, go about your work days, get ready for when the Phillies and Marlins start. That's 8:08 p.m. every day. Somehow the Astros worked their way out of the wild card schedule. Congrats to them at the very last minute. I honestly didn't even know that was possible. Shout out to the Doomer Astros fan on our show a week ago who said we were dumb for thinking that the Astros would just skate into the playoffs. We don't know this team. They're facing more adversity this year. They're less equipped for it. They don't have the same heart as the old. Well, you swept the Diamondbacks and you won a series from the Mariners on the road. Now you're the AL West champions. So congratulations. We told you that would happen. But Peter is here to break things down. We're going to do a preview of these wildcard series rapid fire. We're going to make a pick up top in every series. Then we got a list of questions that we're just going to do one after another. Best home field advantage, surprise playoff hero, round MVP. We'll do it all, and then we'll come back for the DS once those series are settled, and Robert will be back with us on Thursday. But shout out, Peter. Thanks for joining me, and sorry I did like a little minute-long monologue up top before tossing to you, but always love having you, and thanks for helping us out today.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. It's nice. I think the one thing that baseball does probably better than any sport is the quick turnaround from the regular season to the playoffs. You don't really have that break, so it's nice to have the quick turnaround on Tuesday. I'm excited to get it going. I think we actually ended up with some pretty good series, even though the wild cards both kind of came down to the last day of the season. I was interested to see how it was going to work out, and I think it worked out where we're going to have some pretty fun matchups.
Yeah, it was a bummer to see game 162 being only a meaningful day for seeding purposes, not for teams making the postseason. But it did result in some last-minute kookiness. The Astros, who I very much plan to be in this wild card series in Minnesota, a series they probably would have won anyway, will instead get an extra week off and be hanging out ready for the winner of who do they even – they are now –
They play the winner of Toronto and Minnesota. So
yeah,
they might end up getting the Twins anyway.
Twins regardless, and then they'll win that series, and they won't have to do it on the road. But luckily, we don't have to talk Houston for at least one episode. We'll see if we have some game threes for you when we go live on Thursday. That might be fun. But regardless of the round and whether the Astros are in it or not, the promo code for today's show comes courtesy of Bet365. Baseball fans, that's you folks. Bet365 has increased their sign-up offer ahead of the MLB playoffs. New users who register for Bet365 with our code BASEBALLIN, it's right there on the screen, are now eligible to receive $365 in bonus bets. All you have to do is deposit $10, place a $1 wager on any game. Once you place that first bet, you will instantly receive $365 worth of bonus bets, whether you win or lose. Just make sure to use the code BASEBALLIN when you sign up. By using our code at sign up, you not only receive $365 in bonuses, but you will also be directly supporting the podcast. So if you've not signed up for Bet365, join with the code BASEBALLIN, place that first bet. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And join us in the Discord. Become a YouTube member. Peter is there relaying betting tips in the betting channel. Also, plenty of time to talk to both Robert and myself between shows. Chance to ask Robert questions ahead of episodes, between episodes. And again, Thursday's show should be big. A lot of off-season stuff already. And as the playoffs drag on, we'll be talking about Chaim Bloom's replacement. We'll be talking about Nick Krall getting the bump in Cincinnati. And of course, Justin, hopefully we will be talking about the Dodgers long into the offseason. 100 wins is insane for the LA Dodgers. And non-consecutive years, that's not fair. 2020, you couldn't win 100 games. I'm sure some fans will try to asterisk them and say, yeah, but I'm sure something would have gone wrong in 2020. You guys are lucky. 100 wins is 100 wins. 4 full seasons in a row is 4 full seasons in a row. And we will do Dodgers in depth when the NLDS arrives. But for now, let's talk wild card. And we might as well start by predicting the Rays and Rangers. The first series on the docket for viewing on Tuesday, in my opinion, not the least interesting series of the four. I think the Rangers had a nice late season rally recovery. The Rays never took the foot off the gas pedal. They powered through the Blue Jays this weekend. They certainly didn't have to, but they had a pretty solid pre-playoff showing. And Peter, you and I are going to be watching game one because Jordan Montgomery is starting game one of the postseason for the Texas Rangers about a year after we were told that he would not be starting a playoff game for the Yankees, and it was a smart idea to trade him for a man in a walking boot. So, first of all, cool. But second of all, who you have in this series?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I honestly kind of want Monty to pitch well at this point and just stick one to Brian Cashman again because I'm that trade was horrendous. But I like the Rays in this series, man. I really do. I think the fast start, in a way, it overrated them at the beginning of the season, and then throughout the season, I think it underrated them because they got off to the fast start. They lost the division lead. But they still ended up having a great season. Like the Baltimore Orioles were just a little bit better, but it's not like Tampa Bay was, limping into the wild card. As you mentioned, they closed the season pretty strong. I like their pitching. I think Glasnow, Eflin, those first two games is going to be really tough to beat. And I just don't think, I think this Texas team is kind of the complete opposite. They were hot the entire season. Then you came down the stretch and they really struggled. They got back into the division lead and then they lost it again. So I don't really love Texas in this spot. I don't love their pitching. I think the Rays are the team to back in this series.
Yeah, congrats to the Rangers for eventually rallying and securing their spot in the postseason. And I certainly count me among those who maybe did not think that was going to happen. But what did they do the last 10 days of the season? They beat up Seattle at home in the airplane hangar that they call a stadium. They go on the road to the Mariners with a somewhat sizable lead in the AL West all of a sudden, and then they bungle it, lose the exact number of games they need to lose to hand the division back to the Astros, who squeaked by the D-backs with Jose Urquidy on the mound in an extremely impressive gut check victory. Then the D-backs lose another one, Wembley, but clinch a playoff spot. They beat them one more time in the hangover game. So good job on that. But the Mariners squeaked by the Rangers yesterday on the strength of George Kirby's Tim Wakefield tribute knuckleball and sending Tim Wakefield's family love, of course. I will not blast Kurt Schilling during the wild card round preview, but just know that nothing but love for Tim Wakefield's family. That was horrific. From what I heard, he was in the stands and behind the scenes at Fenway up until the penultimate series of the year in Boston. So this is a very recent development, and we lost him far too young and far too quickly. But enough of that. Shout out to, George Kirby for delivering the win yesterday and sending Texas on the road, where I do not believe in them. I am picking the Rays as well. I think the Rays, Brandon Lau is a huge loss for this team. Not going to minimize that. Of course, potentially their MVP and potentially the league's MVP for a good deal of this season will not be playing in this series either, and his big league future is in doubt. The Rays lose pitcher after pitcher, but they have Glasnow for this series. Who knows how much longer they have him. They managed to survive plenty of the regular season without him. I love what the Rays do year in and year out, and I think they haven't gotten a chance to make a big October statement after all of their recent regular season success. You want to devalue the Dodgers' run in 2020. People devalue theirs as well. 2021 was their season, and somehow they managed to win game one of the DS and still lose the opening series to the Red Sox in 4. I have the Rays advancing as well, and I think they probably advance one more round beyond this, but we will talk about that, I'm sure, at a later date. Let's do the Phils and Marlins first, too, because look, I thought this one might be a consensus pick, but I think we may differ on this guy. Who do you have in Phillies Marlins?
I'm going to go a little crazy here. I think the Marlins can win this series, man. I think a 3-game series sets up well for the Marlins more than it does for the Phillies. If this was a 7-game series or a 5-game series, I'm taking the Phillies every single time. But the Marlins pitching is so good. I know they don't have Yuri Perez, but they have the pieces, I think, to at least go pitch for pitch with the Phillies. They beat them 7 out of the 13 times they played in this season, even though they got outscored. So they still found a way, by 9 runs, I believe. I think it was 64-55 in the season series. They still found a way to win the season series. They've also beat up on Aaron Nola this year, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the show, and he's pitching game 2. So if somehow Miami steals game 1, I'm not super confident with Aaron Nola in game 2. So I think the Marlins are kind of live to win this series. I know the Phillies are a much better team all around, but I think the way the Marlins got into the playoffs, they really had no business being there, and then the Cubs collapsed. Now I think they're kind of playing with house money at this point. I really like their pitching staff. I've liked it all year.
I'm sticking with the Phillies. I know most will. I wouldn't be shocked if the Marlins magic continues. They are a minus 56 run differential team this year that absolutely blew the doors off in one-run games. But at a certain point, when you win that many one-run games and you make that many late game comebacks and you erase a 3-0 deficit in the first game of their series in Pittsburgh to keep that stranglehold on the last wildcard spot over the Cubs, it's not an accident. It's a talent. It's a propensity for coming through in late and close situations. Josh Bell and Jake Berger were not just two impactful bats added at this deadline. They were the two best bats anybody added, and Kim Ng got both of them. I love the Marlins. I love what they've been able to do with less. Jesus Luzardo and Braxton Garrett against Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. It's not doing it for me in the same way Sandy Alcantara would. I think there's a good chance that this Phillies team is a better team, better equipped for the postseason than last year's unit, and they don't go as far. That's what I said last week. That's the hot take that I'm sticking with. Of course, not that hot because they run into Atlanta, probably, and they'll probably have to do it to them again if they are to advance past the DS. But I do think Philadelphia's postseason run extends beyond the wild card series. I'm picking them. But if you watch Robert and I preview the regular season, you know that we're always wrong. So don't listen to what I say. Listen to the betting expert. What about the Brewers and Diamondbacks? Arizona sneaks in a very unimpressive, ultimately, a slate of records in the NL wildcard picture. Arizona Diamondbacks, I think a lot of people felt it was a year too early for them. They also ran out to a big lead, swan dived a little bit, steadied the ship, end the season at 84-78, which I think a lot of people before the season probably would have said, this isn't the year for them to make the playoffs. They'll finish with something like 84 wins, then next year's the year. Well, they do, but then they also get a wild card spot. The Brewers, for me, are on a similar footing to the Rays, where they clinched long ago, but they did not take the foot off the gas pedal. They embarrassed the Cubs this past weekend, and they have pitching for days. Where are you on this series?
Yeah, if you can sense the theme here, I'm going with the Brewers. I'm going with the pitching. I really think that we look at playoffs, and it's year after year after year. There's so many low-scoring games and close games, and teams that have pitching depth and can go to other arms when they need somebody. That's the advantage you're always going to have. I mean, the Phillies last year, honestly, with their bats, having the run they had was like the anomaly of these last couple of years of MLB playoffs. So I think the Brewers win this series. I just think their pitching's too good. I know Arizona is supposed to go with Brandon Pfaadt. I believe that's how you say his name. In game one, which I don't love, just the way it worked out for them. And as you mentioned, they kind of limped into this scenario here. They lost 4 straight to end the season. Like, they almost lost a grip on the wild card spot. So I like the Brewers here. I think they're a little underrated just from the pitching. They can kind of go toe-to-toe with anybody. Can their bats give you enough to make an NLCS? I don't know about that, but I think they get through the wild card round.
Picking the Brewers too, and I think additional prediction, I think game one looks a lot like the Reds-Braves series from a couple years ago, where it was 0-0 for an eternity, and then somebody broke through right at the tail end, snuck a win. I'm getting very similar vibes from the way the Brewers are going to attack this postseason. They've become a trendy pick to continue to move on after this round. I'm going to have to see an offensive explosion to pick them to advance past the Dodgers, but I do think that they will be beating Arizona in the series. What about the Twins and the Jays? As Justin in the comments mentioned, the Twins have an 18-game losing streak in the postseason. The Yankees only beat the Twins in the playoffs, and the Twins don't beat anybody at all at this point in time. Where you going now that we know they're hosting for the first time in a while with fans, unlike in 2020, and they don't have to face the Astros. They instead get the Toronto Blue Jays.
I do think they break this losing streak, but I don't think they win the series. I'm going to take Toronto. Toronto's bats have been really cold to end the season. I believe the last month they were like 19th in OPS, which is not great. But I mean, there's just something with the Twins, man. It's like a curse at this point. They cannot win a playoff series. I also don't love Pablo Lopez. He did not pitch well to end the season. I don't love him coming into game one against an offense that is normally pretty explosive. I give Kevin Gausman the edge that game. So I think if Toronto steals, it sets up probably a game 3 for us. And I would take the Blue Jays at home in that scenario. But yeah, I think Minnesota breaks the streak, though. They got to win at least one of these games. If they can't win one of them, it just might be time to get rid of the franchise at that point. I mean, that would be crazy.
I do hear you on that game 1 scenario. I do think Gossman has the inherent advantage over Pablo Lopez, but I'm picking the Twins at Target Field to finally get the monkey off their backs. This is the ultimate battle of postseason and regular season chokers to me. I just feel like it would be disingenuous of me to pick the Blue Jays in the first round after what I've said about the Blue Jays this year. I cannot believe they went into the season as a potential offensive juggernaut featuring Vlad Jr., featuring Bo Bichette, and took offense off the team. They traded Teoscar Hernandez. They traded Lourdes Gurriel Jr. They got Eric Swanson, a solid but unspectacular 7th or 8th inning setup man. They got Dalton Varsho and moved the fences in for him in right field, and he ended up with a 600s OPS. The power went down. I've also been battling with Blue Jays fans on Varsho all year because there were all sorts of profiles about him that came out when they made that trade. The one really embarrassing one was like his exit velocities are low because he loves to bunt for hits. It's like, no, his exit velocities are low because the contact isn't that high quality. He loves to pull the ball. He loves to get under fly balls, and something got in the way of that this year. Couldn't hit the ball out to right in Toronto like he probably should have. Tough year 1 for him. Year 2 might be better, but I'm still so upset that the Blue Jays went into this year with a rotation that's very strong with Gossman and Bassett and the potential for you coming back and Berrios and Kikuchi, and just said, we don't need that much offense. We can get rid of not 1, but 2 potential all-star performers. Gurriel makes the all-star team. They also use Gabriel Moreno in a trade for a defense-first player when they could have used him in a trade for anybody else at the deadline. So I'm in an ongoing feud with the Blue Jays. I can't pick them. I think they win game 1 and lose 2 and 3, and Minnesota takes care of it. But I understand that's an unpopular pick, and it could easily be the Jays, despite their cold snap to end the season. Now let's go with the rapid-fire questions, and we'll get all the way to the end of the episode with these fun ones. First and foremost, most likely World Series winner to be playing in this round, and this question's a lot tougher now that Houston is not included.
Oh, it definitely is, but I think it's going to be Tampa Bay. I think that if there's a team that's going to come out of this round that makes the World Series, I think it's going to be Tampa Bay. I just think that they've been there. They have guys who have been there. Obviously, the Randy Arozarenas of the bunch. Like, they have experience that some of these other teams, Arizona doesn't have. Texas doesn't really have. I know Texas has some guys who have been there. As a franchise, they haven't been there. So I kind of like the Rays. I think they're the team. I think I think we're talking about the Rays completely differently if they weren't in the AL East. If they were in the Central and they won the Central by 15 games, people would be picking them to win the World Series. But because they were in the East, they ended up in the wild card. I think people are way lower on them than they should be.
I agree with that. I look, I love the Rays too, and I certainly have the Rays advancing past this first round. I think the most likely World Series winner in this round is the Brewers, just because that pitching is a distinct advantage. Again, I'm going to need to see the offensive production, but I love the tenacity they displayed down the stretch. I love Craig Counsell's potential final managerial job in Milwaukee. And I could certainly see a quirky Brewers team making it to the NLCS and trying to advance to the World Series if the Dodgers pitching does not hold up. And the Dodgers pitching has to answer a million questions. Lance Lynn isn't even penciled into the rotation. Dave Roberts was non-committal on that. He's on the bereavement list right now. He said game 3, maybe, but he could be a bullpen arm, could be a bolt guy. The Dodgers have, for a 100-win team, they're going into the playoffs with more uncertainty than any 100-win team I remember. So give me the Brewers. And Justin, just one last time, I know Gurriel and Teoscar were both impending free agents. I know they wanted to get something for them as opposed to comp picks. I am team, if you have a chance to win a World Series with a distinct offensive advantage, then go ahead and do that. Don't make your offense worse. They took 2 30-homer bats and replaced them with, I guess no one knew Varsho was going to be quite this bad, but I suspected he might be. And Kevin Kiermaier is a 7-homer punch and Judy clubhouse glue guy. And they literally took offense off the roster. So if you're going to do that with impending free agents, then replace it with offense. Don't just go all defense. I don't know. The Blue Jays made me mad. I get it, but it makes me mad. It's so modern. It's so modern team building. If you have the chance with a special offense to win a World Series, win the division, win the East, go do it. What about your wild card round MVP? Who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my Rays here that I'm picking because I'm gonna say Randy Arozarena. Playoff Randy's gonna be back. 333 career hitter in the playoffs. Didn't finish the season as strong as I would have liked. He only hit 217 in September, but in August he hit 280. His slash line was 280, 409, 452. So he was really picking it up in August. Didn't have the best September, but I think come this time of year, this is when Randy Arozarena thrives. So I'm gonna take him as my playoff MVP. Or my wild card MVP.
Wild card round MVP. Give me Trey Turner, who since the standing ovation in Philadelphia has not been anything like the Trey Turner that started the season. 333 in August, 299 with 7 homers in September, and I am just a Phillies believer, so I'm going to go with him. Justin, I promise I will not keep going back and forth, but they fumbled keeping those players at the deadline. They were not world. If the Blue Jays are still struggling and treading water at the deadline, they can trade those offense first guys. But before the season starts, I do not like removing an entire year of them. And their offense treaded water all year as a result of it. Believe me, I do hear what you're saying, though. Yes, both of those teams absolutely viewed themselves as something that they were not and are now going to pay the price. But Toronto getting so far ahead of it with a year of control versus starting a deadline frenzy, I just disagree with it. I understand the opposing viewpoint, but I disagree with it. What about your surprise player who could help steal a series?
Yeah, it's actually funny because this is going to be in that Rays series. I think Mitch Garver could be something interesting for this Texas team. You look at his numbers this year, only played 87 games. He hit 19 home runs, had a really good September, hit 7 home runs and hit 264. Think he could be a guy maybe was trying to find somebody, in a series that I thought was going to be an upset. So if Texas wins, in my mind, that's an upset here. I think Mitch Garver could be a guy that I think a little bit in that offense where you hear the big names that they have, but then you kind of look down, the board and it's like, hey, they got a catcher who's hitting 20 home runs in 80 games. That's pretty big.
Garver was the guy who, when the Yankees were trying to replace Gary Sanchez, I was like, can we do Mitch Garver? Does he have a home? And he does have a home in Texas. He's extremely good at baseball. So great pick. Look, I'm going with an instinct pick here. I can't even really say it with a straight face. There are no numbers to back this up. My player hit 150 in August this year without a single home run or RBI. 1 homer, 8 ribs in September and October with a 226 average. Subtracted 0.5 WAR from his team this year. I know the numbers are not in my favor, but I'm going with Yuli Gurriel because that if there's an upset in that Miami Philly series, that the former Astro in the first round is going to be responsible for the damage. Gurriel hit 247 this year, 361 slugging, 667 OPS, 81 OPS plus. Last year in Houston, before wreaking havoc in the World Series, 242, 288 OBP, 647 OPS, 85 OPS plus. He was borderline down for the count last year. The question was, how can we bench him? Is it finally time to move on? 400 in the DS, 333 in the CS with a homer against the Yankees, a homer in each of those rounds, 316 against the Phils in the World Series. You cannot kill this man. And so if the Marlins are going to make it competitive, it will be because Gurriel showed up again, which he does every single year.
I like that pick a lot. When I saw it, when I saw that one, I was like, oh man, we got to deal with this again. I completely forgot that they have him. I'm like, that's a good thing for my Marlins pick over the Phillies. I will say that.
But at least the league did not let him cakewalk back to Houston like they did with Justin Verlander. Like, we have to deal with him again, True. But he's somewhere else in a more fun spot.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, why would I bet against him? It's why I didn't bet against the Astros missing the playoffs. It's why I'm not picking the Marlins, but if they do pull it off, he's going to be right in the middle of it. We've both touched on these names earlier, but what pitcher do you expect to have a dud first round series?
Yeah, I said it earlier, Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola this season, to me, last year, I thought he was a sneaky Cy Young candidate. His FIP was insane. I thought he got underrated because he didn't get to pick up as many wins as he should have, I thought, last year. And this year, just not the same numbers. He's kind of hovered around a mid-4s ERA for most of the season. did not close the last month of the season strong, had a 5.47 ERA in September, and 3 starts against the Marlins this year, and they were pretty spread out. They were one really early in the season, one in the middle, and one late in the season. Every single one of those starts, he gave up at least 4 earned runs. His last one, he only lasted 4 1/3 innings. I think this Miami team might have his number. I think he gets knocked around in game 2. It's a big reason why I think the Marlins have a shot to win this series, because I really think they can win at least one of these first 2 games. And then you go game 3 in Miami, anything can happen.
Oh, but they don't. They stick in Philadelphia for all of these. These are home.
Oh, that's
games
right.
for,
That's right.
They don't move. That's the best part about these.
That's
series.
right. That's right.
They don't go anywhere. These unlucky lower seeded teams get stuck in the road ballparks for the entirety.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's and again, I think the Marlins have the tenacity to potentially pull this off at Citizens Bank Park, but at least they do get unlucky in that regard. I have Pablo Lopez in this category. And you touched on him too. And I don't think you have full faith in him. I don't know if he can tame even the muted version of this Toronto lineup. He's going game 1, 11 earned runs across 3 starts in his last 15 1/3 innings. That's why I'm sticking with Twins drop game 1, win 2 and 3 to reverse all of that disaster in one fell swoop. But I don't think they're going to be feeling fantastic after the opener of this series. What about a standout rookie in the wild card round?
Yeah, I'm just hoping to see this one. I want Corbin Carroll to have a fun wild card round. I think he's just been so great all season long. Like, he's going to win the National League Rookie of the Year. Like, I just want to see him have the playoff moment. I think the one thing I've really just with, Trout being hurt all the time and just some of these stars, like, I think even just like the star power in baseball, like, we need more stars. We need as many stars as you possibly can on as many markets as you possibly can for the game. I think if we have a big playoff series from Corbin Carroll, it's more of a national stage for him than playing in Arizona. I think he's got plenty of attention this year, but it's just, you have a kid his age, off the season he has some playoff success. I think that's just a good sign for the league going forward.
Corbin Carroll is the right pick. Like, objectively is probably going to be the rookie stud. And the Diamondbacks are not done producing them. Jordan Lawler, Drew Jones, like the names that are going to continue to follow in Arizona over the next several years. There's a lot of talent in that pipeline. Just so that I don't echo the Carroll pick too strongly, I believe in Jonathan Aranda. I hope the Rays give him a chance to shine in this series. I think the bat plays better than it has so far this season. I go Aranda over Oselvis Basalve in just by a nose, though I think both Rays rookies could potentially contribute, especially with the absence of Lau that we talked about earlier. What about the best and worst home field advantages in this series?
Yeah, best is Philly. I don't even think that's a question. I think
Philly,
we all know that.
For me, is the best in all of baseball, by the way. We don't even have to go wild card round aside.
I agree. I think Philly is the best, which is the more I've talked myself out of this Marlins pick throughout this show, but I still believe in the Marlins. But yeah, Philly's got the best. The worst, I might have to say Tampa Bay, which stinks because I also picked them. But I just do the Rays really have a home field advantage ever? Like, it just never feels like that to me that they do. I guess you can maybe say I feel like Twins fans actually care, though. Like, we've had years of Rays fans not caring, and then sometimes it looks like they care. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Rays home field. I don't think you get a rowdy Tropicana field at any time.
No, and you're not going to open the upper deck, so it'll just be the same old go right down to the field. No matter what section your tickets say, please wander down to the sidelines. We need you. Yeah, look, I mean, I think Philly and Boston are the 2 best home field advantages in baseball, so Philly skates by in this round for me. The worst, I'm going to go with Minnesota, partially because of the early hour of these games. They are just in a rough spot playing all these afternoon games. And I did also wade into a controversy this week watching Minnesota fans eat each other alive in Twitter replies about how, a local columnist was lecturing them about how they don't have the same home field other cities do and they have to show up. And the fans were like, we were allowed in the 2019 ALDS. And it's like, okay, well, when you're already bickering with your own columnists before the series starts, I don't think it's a fantastic sign for your home field advantage. So I'll go Minnesota by a nose. I think the Rays cowbells are going to be loud. I'm also still mad at the Rays just for not beating the Red Sox, not being able to close the door in the 2021 ALDS. I can't believe they didn't win that series. Randy Arozarena stole home to cement a blowout win in the first game. The Red Sox were down, I think, 3 or 4-0 in the first inning, or up And then the Rays fought back, took a 6-4 lead. They couldn't close it out at home. They go to Fenway. Kevin Kiermaier in a play I will never forget. Hunter Renfroe kicks a double into the stands, keeping Kiermaier at third with what might have been the winning run in extras. The Red Sox go on to walk that off, and there's no recourse for Renfroe causing the damage. Like, knocked the ball out of play to benefit his team with a blunder, and then the umps were just like, hey, what can you do? Ball's out of bounds, 2 bases. Like, give me a break. He could have done that intentionally. We'll never know. But classic Bostonian luck that their player is so incompetent in the field that they then benefit and win the game in the series. So yeah. I'm still angry at the 2021 Rays for that, but I do think they have a slightly better home field advantage. What about, for a final question, your most fun playoff bandwagon in the wild card round?
Yeah, I think we're on opposite sides. So I'm going to say the Marlins, man. They have no business making the playoffs this year. I think we talked about playoff opportunities. Was it early August we had the show and I was on, and we talked about like the playoff odds and kind of who was in the conversation, like what we should do. And I remember saying, I was like, there's just no, Miami's schedule is too tough. Like they don't hit. And then somehow, some way they're in the playoffs. Like, it would just be fun, I think, for this being a young team. They got the Jazz Chisholm. I would love to see him just pimp a home run at Citizens Bank Park. Like, that would be absolutely awesome.
He would love that too.
Yeah, like I think that they'd be a fun team if they can, because if they win, it's going to be close games too. That's just how they've played this entire season that you mentioned it earlier. They've just won a ton of one-run games. Like, I think that would be fun to root for. So, an upset, I think, in the first round would be very fun. I'll go with the Marlins.
I feel you. I do. But I just think I think the Phillies are the most fun fan base this side of the Braves to be a part of right now. So if you are not a Phillies fan and you want to bandwagon somebody this wild card round and throughout the postseason, you couldn't do much better. It's hard to argue that anybody delivers more fun per capita than this team right now. Bryce Harper being the captain of that, Kyle Schwarber having a season unlike any with 47 bombs and basically breaking even on the WAR spectrum. Distinctly weird player. They're not fresh faces, but just enjoy the ride for as long as they're there. Now, if it's the next round, if we're talking DS, the most fun bandwagon by far are the Baltimore Orioles. But we will get to that, I'm sure, at a later date. I mean, they also get the late season death of Brooks Robinson. There's a lot of mojo going on in Baltimore right now, and it might not be all of the on-field variety. That stadium is going to be torn apart. The fans might be so loud in Baltimore that they accidentally push the left field fence back in to where it should have been in the first place.
Yeah, they should have kept it there, but it helped them this year, so I guess it was the right move. I guess.
Still not a fan. Very infuriating. Well, thanks so much, Peter, for coming by, co-hosting this special wild card round preview episode. And again, Robert and I are going to be live on Thursday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, like always. And hopefully we have some game 3 action that day. I see Justin in the comments predicting a lot of series ending in 3s. I would cross my fingers and hope that comes to fruition. Peter, this was a joy, and you seem to be smiling a little bit more, a little pressure off your shoulders now that the Yankee season is officially over, not playing any more baseball. Even down the stretch when the games didn't matter, it still was just very deeply annoying that they were still going on. So I feel like a weight has been lifted. I'm seeing in color again, like all sorts of great things, and I can sense the same for you.
Yeah, I had my last Yankees moment of just being done with the season was Friday night. I went to the Connecticut Sun Liberty playoff game, and I got the notification on my phone that the Yankees were down 9-0 in the first inning. And I go, that has got to be something wrong. Somebody messed up. There's a typo. And then I look and I was like, is Carlos Rodon serious? And I said, I need this season to be done with this baseball team. Like, yes. I can't, had to be done.
No, it's over. And the dark cloud is gone. We will move on to next season, and hopefully things will be a little better. They probably won't be, but good luck to the auditors checking through Hal Steinbrenner's tax returns. Let me know when you fired assistant GM Michael Fishman. I would really appreciate getting the heads up on that first. So we get some new analytics guys in there who actually understand what analytics mean. A best home field advantage, by the way. I would throw the Liberty in there. You went to the Connecticut arena for Game 3.
Yeah,
I was at Game 2. The Tide Turner in New York at the Barclays Center, and that crowd was insane. I would also say that they're showing fans like celebrity fans, Celebrity Row. Alicia Keys was there. So was Jay-Z. They didn't put them on the board and they didn't appear to interact. Like they were at opposite ends of the same side of the court. And they never announced Jay-Z was there. We just all saw him and we were like, well, that's obviously Jay-Z. And Alicia Keys was right down the road. And they did not get together or pose or take photos. So kind of a bummer, but incredible crowd. And Liberty, we will see you in the WNBA finals the way it was always meant to be. Aces are rightly favored, I would say. They're terrifying. But at least the Liberty made it. And we got the super team matchup that we were hoping for.
Exactly. That's all I'm looking forward to. That'll be a fun series too.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned for more WNBA chat on Thursday's episode of the Baseball Insiders. Again, this episode brought to you by Bet365. The promo code BaseballIn. Get those 365 bonus bets back if you win or lose your first bet. Bet on the MLB playoffs. Sign up if you don't have an account. Now, there's no better time than the present. And again, the code is BaseballIn. If you use that at sign up, you help yourself. You help us on the show. I am wearing a Cardinals hat for Adam Wainwright, who retired yesterday. Got a puppy to celebrate his final day in the big leagues. Cardinals gave him a puppy. I got a puppy yesterday. So our name and last initial are no longer the only thing that we share. And there are now no Adam W's in Major League Baseball for the first time in 20 years. And it was Wainwright, then it was Wainwright and Warren, then it was just Wainwright for a long time. And now we're back to square one. So fathers, mothers, turn your Adam W's into baseball players. I did not have it. I didn't have what it took, but some of yours might. We need them back. We need to make baseball the best version of itself again. Peter, thanks so much for joining me again. Really fun show. I hope for our sakes that we get 4 game 3s. We get to delay thinking about the Astros for as long as possible, and then maybe at least Jazz up in the 9th of a 1-run game at Citizens Bank. It could be high drama.
Could be very fun.
Well, thanks for joining me. Of course, Peter's in the Discord. We hope to see most of you in the Discord. Very active comment section. Again, Bet365 if you haven't. And Robert Murray and I will see you on Thursday afternoon. Take care.